Food banks were once for emergencies. Now they're a way of life for millions of Canadians. Families, seniors, even full-time workers, standing in line for hours just to get a bag of groceries. This isn't happening in some faraway country. It's happening right here in one of the richest nations on earth. People are skipping meals, parents are pretending they're not hungry so their kids can eat, and the shelves at food banks are running empty. When survival becomes charity, something has gone terribly wrong.
What does Canada need most? How about we shut the doors on 4,000 food banks?
Food banks are a band-aid solution. It's the bigger system that needs to be fixed.
11 million people now relying on food banks, the highest level in history.
At the food bank, and they were burning me down.
Food banks in Ontario are cutting back their supply.
Canadian food banks are collapsing across Canada.
4 million Canadians are relying on food banks to eat.
This isn't just about inflation. This is about survival.
The number of Canadian families struggling to put food on the table.
That 18.1% of people who are employed in this country are going hungry.
Did you really vote to pick a fight with Canada?
90% increase in food bank visits.
Food banks across Canada are buckling.
Welcome to Canadian Rant, where we talk about what the government won't and where real Canadians share their truth. Let's face it, if you told someone 10 years ago that middle-class families in Canada would be relying on food banks just to get by, they'd laugh. But now, it's our new normal. Food Banks Canada recently reported a record-breaking number of visits, over 2 million in a single month. That's not a statistic. That's a scream for help. And the most shocking part? Half the people walking through those doors have jobs. They're working Canadians, teachers, healthcare aides, retail workers, people doing everything right, and still going hungry. Meanwhile, grocery CEOs brag about billion-dollar profits. Politicians say the economy is strong. But on the ground, Canadians are lining up for donated food because they can't afford to live. This isn't just about hunger, it's about dignity. It's about what happens when a country forgets to take care of its people.
Hi, just talking to you from Canada. I was saying to fellow Canadians, lots of us are trying to buy Canadian, and that makes sense. But there's lots of us that can't afford to. So if you do have a little extra money, consider donating to your food banks to help those Canadians who can't. Because that's what we do as Canadians, we stick together. And if you're an American watching this, did you really vote to pick a fight with Canada? And to have higher prices on your food? I don't think so. So maybe you call your congressman or your senator and let them know how you feel about it. So, take care. Bye-bye.
Just sitting in the truck and got to thinking, with all those red signs around, if all the trades guys actually drove around, wrote down the addresses of those nice red Liberal signs, whenever they're doing work, they could charge 25-30% more to work on those Liberal houses. Just simply because they don't mind paying more in taxes, they don't mind a 25-30% increase in carbon. They just like to spend money, and Liberals obviously vote Liberal because they're not worried about a deficit. Money doesn't matter. So yeah, just keep an eye on those Liberal signs and just add 25-30% to your invoice.
This isn't just about inflation. This is about survival for millions of Canadians right now.
Food bank usage is at record highs, 2 million visits a month, the most in Canadian history. Gas and grocery prices are eating away paychecks and families across the West. They're being crushed by inflation, and they don't see a way out. Drop a comment below. Who's really paying for all of this?
The full story unpacked on our Unfiltered YouTube page. Please subscribe. You know what? The story is worse than the headlines are showing.
If I said to you, 40% more Canadians are hungry than just
that
1
has
quarter
a way
ago.
bigger impact.
If I told you that 18.1% of people who are employed in this country are going hungry.
So there are 42 million people in Canada approximately, give or take.
Yeah.
And you're saying 40% of the country, right?
Right.
That's what, 18 million people?
Oh, I'm sure the government would love us to sugarcoat by saying we have food insecurity, which sounds like you can't afford Joe Louis, right?
That's like 16 to 18 million people in Canada are suffering from hunger at one point of the day.
A not so fun fact. So since 2019 to 2024, there has been a 90% increase in food bank visits throughout Canada. 90%. Jumping from 1.1 million in 2019 to over 2 million in 2024, and growing and growing and growing and growing. And this is according to the Food Bank's Hunger Count for Canada report. So, yeah, create a crisis so we have a problem to solve that never gets solved. That's called manufactured crisis. And you can guess where that's coming from, who's been running the puppet show for the last 10 years and more and more and more. Yeah, keep voting for these people.
I was in line at our food bank, at the food bank, and they were burning me down there. I had to leave. They burned and told me we chemicals. It's not just that. It's every day, day in, day out, night, non-stop, and then watching them hurt my boys. It's just unbelievable. I might feel broken right now. It's unbelievable what they're allowed to be done to my family. This is fucking sick power, man. And we haven't got the courage or the balls of men in this country to stop it. How fucking sad for me and my family, eh?
Toronto, this is just disturbing. Food banks in Ontario are cutting back their supply due to an unprecedented amount of demand. Here's all the info you need. Over 40% of Ontario food banks are scaling back due to a record high demand. And it's been reported food bank usage has already surpassed capacity and resources. And here are a couple quotes about how serious this problem is in our province. And Feed Ontario reported that every region in our province saw double-digit increases of usage in the last year. And this is the second consecutive year in Ontario that we've seen an unprecedented surge in demand. So Toronto, let me know below, what should our city do about this?
Talk about food banks. We don't realize it, but Canada is facing an unprecedented hunger crisis with 1 in 3 Canadians, 11 million people, now relying on food banks, the highest level in history. Demand has doubled since 2019. We've seen food inflation of 27% since 2020. Some items, bread, milk, meat, up 30 to 50%. 60% of food bank users cite rent or mortgage as the primary burden. 25% of users have jobs, but still can't afford groceries.
As cost of living soars, millions of Canadians are turning to food banks. This headline has really been on my mind this week. I mean, maybe it's because unemployment used to be one of the major reasons why you'd need to use a food bank. But today, even with a job, the high cost of living and the price of groceries makes it really hard to get by. I think what's uncomfortable is knowing that these factors are kind of out of our control, right? Like, you can hustle hard and get a job, but you can't single-handedly control inflation or the fact that this butter now costs $7.29. Am I just one major life change away from needing these resources? Now, there's a new report from Food Banks Canada that shows usage is at its highest level since the survey began in 1989. I noticed that the primary users of food banks are people who live in market rentals. And get this, more than 40% receive income assistance, but 16% of food bank users are employed. So when assistance or paychecks fail to cover the cost of food, what needs to change? Well, experts in food insecurity agree that food banks are a band-aid solution. It's the bigger system that needs to be fixed. This means better wages, better assistance, lower housing costs, fairer tax distribution. Obviously, this issue runs deep and there's no easy solution, but it's just making me think, you know? What are your thoughts?
Mr. Speaker, I hear it every day. The calls, the emails, the letters. We cannot afford food. The Daily Bread Food Bank expects 4 million people to visit. 4 million people. That's a lot of Canadians in despair. And today, the parliamentary budget officer confirmed that the deficit will be double of Justin Trudeau. That is the reckless spending that drives up inflation and increases the food of everything we buy. And the Prime Minister himself said that he would be judged by the price at the grocery store. Well, he has failed, completely and undeniably. When will this Liberal government stop emptying the wallets of Canadians to cover for their failures?
The Honourable Secretary of State's report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Studies show that school food programs improve student health and mental health. They also improve learning outcomes, better grades in science, math, and reading. Mr. Speaker, those healthy meals in schools can also save a family up to $200 a month. That's a real solution for affordability and for health for Canadians, Mr. Speaker. So why did the Conservatives, when they had the chance to vote for healthy school food, vote against it? And then why did the member from Calgary East just now talk down all those programs that are supporting tens of thousands of kids in Alberta and hundreds of thousands of kids right across Canada?
The Honourable Member for Lethbridge.
Major breaking news, Canadian food banks are collapsing across Canada. More than 2 million Canadians are using the food bank per month. Now, I know this number is old. It's probably close to 3 to 5 million because CTV is not on our side. And nearly 1 in 5 Canadians have jobs working full time, using the food bank, sleeping in their car or out on a tent. This is getting ridiculous what's happening in Canada. Whoever thought in a million years this would ever happen in our country? This is insane. Folks, people are working full time, sleeping in their cars, working full time, going to the food bank. This is not right. Employers need to start paying their people more. And let's just talk about businesses in Canada. There's a handful of businesses that are just making an absolute killing and paying their people next to nothing, slave wages. Now here in Alberta, our Premier Daniel Smith, has been doing a good job trying to get new business to come in so Canadians have high-paying jobs, like coal mining, for example, which the NDP shut down because of, well, it's not good for the environment. Now there's ways of doing it now. Years ago, yes, it was terrible for the environment. Coal mining wasn't the best thing for the environment. It was terrible. I agree. But now they've got clean coal mining. This would produce major high-end jobs that pay up to $120,000 to up to $200,000 a year. And this would help out a lot of Albertan families. Tell me, what do you guys think?
We're a food bank and we are being crushed by the weight of doing what our government refuses to do. I've been a leader at Food Banks Mississauga for over 15 years and we were recently forced to make the toughest decision in our organization's history. Due to financial constraints and to ensure long-term sustainability, we restructured by eliminating 16% of our paid staff and canceling programs. Almost 200% more people use the food bank in Mississauga now versus before 2020. While our community has been generous and we've grown the organization significantly, we used to need Mississauga individuals and businesses to donate less than $3 million each year to operate the food bank. Now we need the same residents and companies to give us almost $9 million each year. Watch this. Food banks are not funded by our governments. We are privately funded charities, band-aid solutions to fill policy gaps, funded by the generosity of everyday people and businesses. We believe no one should go hungry. In Mississauga, we receive 1% of our annual resources from our regional government, which also has limited resources for social programs. 4 out of 5 food bank clients in Toronto are newcomers to Canada, new report finds. The data also reveals inequities with both international and refugee students facing more severe food insecurity than Canadian students. There's your problem. Uncontrolled immigration. And I'll be completely honest with you guys. I'm going to speak to you as Mario from a third world country. I know how people from a third world country think. They think this is free food. And they're saying, oh, look, I don't have to pay for anything. Just come here. There was a guy that was doing it that worked, I believe, at one of the banks that was making almost $100,000 a year, making a video saying, look, I can get free food. He got fired for it. Multiply him. Someone who's integrated into Canada, using the food banks as a free shopping spree. What do you think people from a third world country are going to do when these things are openly available to them? They take advantage of the system, plain and simple. Why would they spend their hard-earned dollars on things like food when they can get it for free? That's literally the mentality. This madness of uncontrolled immigration needs to end. We need to go back to the point system, the system where we rank who we want into our country and we pick and choose the best and the brightest. The last thing we need is 50,000 foreign scammers who tell us they're coming here to study and go to school and they do not show up on the first day of school. Unreal.
Corey Morgan on X, Canada's dairy products are so good that producers were forced to dump 6 billion liters down the drain by law to force consumers to pay more for it. Think about that. Supply management is screwing us blind. So the milk was worth $6.7 billion vanished from Canadian dairy farms. So it sounds like they were about $1 a liter to dump it down. This is unbelievable. Imagine 6 billion liters, how much milk that is. So this is what's happening to our milk in Canada.
Hey guys, we're here at Hugon's Farm in southern Ontario. We milk about 260 cows. Right now during the winter months, you milk quite a bit more milk because the feed is very consistent. And if you do a good job, you will produce quite a bit of milk. So, but right now we're over our quota. It's regulated by the government and by the DFO. But the problem is what they don't understand is millions of people look at this milk running away because it's the end of the month. So I dump 30,000 liters of milk. It breaks my heart. I will show you. By the way, this here, Canadian milk, it's $7 a liter. When I go for my haircut, people say, wow, $7, Jerry, for a little bit of milk. I say, well, you have to go higher up because we have no say anymore as a dairy farmer on our own farm because they make us dump it. And no matter how we stand up, so this time I'm going public. I want the people to see the pain that us growers have of 365 days. As a little boy, we grew up on a dairy farm, came from Europe, work, and here we are. This is what's happening.
Well, I have to tell you about my day today. A friend of mine is pretty crippled up, and he's on disability, so I usually take him to the food bank now and then. So he asked me to take him to this morning. So we got up early. The food bank opens at 8, so we said we'll get you by 7. And anyway, when we get there, I pass by and I don't see anybody. It's all dark. So when we got out of the car and I took him around the corner, here was these immigrants, I guess, about 50 of them, and they all had these dark Canada geese or Canada goose jackets. I mean, I can't afford them. They are so expensive. So anyway, okay, we wait in line. Just fine. So when you're all in line up, you got to go in. All of a sudden, everybody start butting in, jumping in to get a number, because once you go there, you pick a number. So I took my friend through, and we were probably 55 or 56 was on the list trying to get a number. When I get there to pick a number for him, it's 120. And I said, there's something definitely wrong with this, 120. Then I asked a woman about it next to me. She said, this is common. She said, what they do, they get in the front of the line, and when you get to those numbers, they grab a bunch. Then, for the friends don't have to wait, they're outside and they give the numbers to their friends. So I went out and reported this. I said, this can't be done. I was like 56, 57. I got a number 120. She says, we're so sorry. She said, this is becoming a common problem now. We have no way of controlling it. So I was in the lineup and waiting to get my stuff for him. And all of a sudden, this other girl just come right on through, cut across everybody, and zipped into to get the groceries. And this guy got upset. And oh my God, the fight broke out, and he started saying, you come to Canada, be like respectful to each other and ourselves, right? You can't be doing this. And even the woman in the church got up and spoke. She says, you can't be doing this anymore. You got to learn to share. You got to learn to have patience and everything. So I think, it's like, respect us when you come to Canada. That's all we're asking. Like, be mannerly, wait in line, and you find life a lot better.
Well, this is huge. The Liberal government thought, what does Canada need most? How about we shut the doors on 4,000 food banks when Canada needs them most? How dare the Liberal government even consider this? The Commons Finance Committee, stacked with Liberals, recommended stripping charitable status from faith-based organizations, meaning Catholic churches. You realize what that means, right? 85,000 charity organizations here in Canada, and 40% of them are faith-based from Catholic churches. That's tens and thousands of organizations. These aren't just Sunday services. They are the ones running food banks, shelters, clothing drives, soup kitchens, mental health and addiction crisis centers. So your first thing to do within the first year of you becoming Prime Minister is shut down tens and thousands of food banks? Check any food bank in your city. Go to the list. Vincent de Paul, St. Mary's, St. Joseph's, parish after parish. I can almost guarantee it. Catholic churches are on the front lines feeding neighborhoods and families. Take that away and people go hungry. Record number of people visiting the food banks, and the lineups are out the door, and your first move as Prime Minister is to just take the entire food bank away altogether. The Liberal answer was not to protect them when Canadians are in need the most, to fund them, not to thank them, but to threaten them, to take away their charitable status. So tell me, why is this an urgent priority of the Prime Minister? All the crises, inflation, housing, healthcare, crime, immigration. First move was to attack the churches, the shelters, the food bank. And I get it though. A lot of people watching this think, well, this isn't going to affect me. I don't use the food banks and don't have a religion. If Catholic food banks shut down, you're left with nothing. You're left with government-ran food banks where you need to show ID. Make sure you do your taxes, wait on lists, and follow their rules. And if you don't, no food for you. That's not compassion. That is control. Food banks, shelters, rehab centers, soup kitchens. Liberals think the answer is to strip them of their support. Fine. Tax the churches. Don't come crying to me when all the free meals dry up, the shelters start closing, and addiction services disappear. This isn't about money. This is about power. You strip away the backbone of Canadian charity, you leave Canadians broken. How fucking dare they?
The number of Canadian families struggling to put food on the table is surging by leaps and bounds. New data suggests almost 10 million Canadians are worried about running out or already limiting their intake. And as CTV's CarrotBRI reports, that includes a growing number of children.
This St. John's food bank, focusing on single parents, is getting ready for a surprisingly busy time of year.
For single parent families, a lot of them are relying on those school breakfast and lunch programs. When the end of June hits and that last school bell rings, they're not sure where they turn to next.
Here's the truth. Hunger in Canada isn't a charity problem. It's a policy problem. No one should need to rely on food banks in a country this rich. But when wages stagnate, rent explodes and groceries double, what choice do people have? Every bag handed out by a food bank is a symbol of a broken promise. The promise that if you work hard, you'll be okay. That promise doesn't exist anymore. Seniors are showing up at food banks because their pensions don't stretch far enough. Parents are skipping meals so their kids can eat. Students are trying to focus on school with empty stomachs. This isn't resilience, it's desperation. And here's the part that hurts most. Food banks are running out of food. Donations are drying up because even those who used to give are now struggling themselves. We've reached a point where demand is rising faster than compassion can keep up. But this crisis isn't invisible anymore. Every story shared, every volunteer who steps up, every voice that refuses to stay silent? That's where hope begins. Because the truth is, we don't just need more donations. We need real change, affordable housing, fair wages, and a government that stops pretending inflation is under control. We need to rebuild a system that values people, not profit margins. If you're watching this, and you've ever had to make the impossible choice between paying rent or buying groceries, I want you to know you're not alone. You're not weak. You're not a failure. You're living in a system that's failing you. And we're going to keep talking about it until someone listens, because silence is what allows this crisis to grow. But together, when we speak, when we demand better, that's when real change starts. This is Canadian Rant, where truth still matters. If you believe no one in Canada should go hungry, no matter their income, hit subscribe and share this video, because the fight for dignity starts with awareness, and awareness starts with us.